That was a bit of a loop there, yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Bearders Media. We're into episode 5 already. Alhamdulillah, season 4. Today we are discussing the things I do for you. Bit of a wordplay, I like that. Maj, how are you, brother?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
You know, this is an interesting topic because this particular topic can take us in all sorts of different directions. But it's something I think everybody has observed throughout their lives, at least those who pay attention to those people who may have gone through situations where they've felt, with hindsight in particular, that their minds were made up about things or people based on other people's opinions, ideas, and minds.
Yeah, everybody over the age of 4, because you expect this in sort of an...
Yeah, and you know what? It's usually, you think about it and you think about, well, yeah, school days, you have the popular person in school or in your class or in your circle of friends, the person who is most outwardly spoken or who has the most, that wow factor, or somebody who has that kind of stature within the circle. You know, they're like your thought influencers. They're the people who kind of shape the way you think. So whoever generally, whether it's when school days, it's going to be peers around you, or as you're growing mature, it's going to be people who are around you, like teachers or whatever. And then you think about the business world and mentors or people who are popular in the business world. And then you think about the community when you become even more mature. Because I've realized this as time's gone on, there's an evolution of your personality from when you're kids, you grow into adulthood, and then you grow into your 30s and your 40s. And, when you get to that stage, your mindset isn't restricted to just your little nucleus of friends or family. You start becoming more concerned about the things around you in a more wider sense, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's happened to me. I've been guilty of it. I have had my opinions influenced or shaped about people based on other people's opinion, who I have held. Maybe I've had trust in them. Maybe, I've trusted their judgment on things. Maybe I've held them in high regard. And for whatever reason that might be, for all sorts of reasons, your opinions on people are somewhat influenced by those people who are more, whether it's they're stronger than you or more influential than you or more louder than you.
Have you noticed that, you go through a certain phase in life, and I'm going to say school years, early infant years, the loudest person in the room is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You grow out of that, don't you?
Volume speaks conviction.
Yeah.
So
nice. Nice.
I should quote that. Actually, it reminds me of a quote that I threw out a couple of years ago. Just because someone speaks with conviction doesn't mean they speak the truth. And you find that a lot of the times, whether it's in your working environment, whether it's in your family, in your household, whether it's in your business environment, whether it's in your, community, those who speak the loudest with conviction sound more trustworthy, and they sound like, I should believe them. And one of the problems there is because people don't challenge them.
Yeah.
When people aren't challenged, that's another reason why people tend to believe them and think that, hang on, if no one's challenging them, everybody else must be thinking the same. Am I in the minority? I better shut up.
See, this is where anybody can then get brave and then add, a bit of tax, bit of VAT, bit of masala, shala. You can just add another 10-20%, can't you?
Yeah.
And we see this with people with positions of power. Politicians, councillors, MPs, prime ministers, presidents, all the way to the top, and then all the way to the bottom. Is if somebody, and we see it with charlatans, what do you call them, like beards and priests and all these kind of people.
Yeah,
is when they're getting away.
Charlatans, is that the right word?
Is it the right word?
I don't know. You'll
have to let us know on that one. But when they can get away with so, then they think, maybe I can just
take it up a notch. And that's when they do, don't they? There are a lot of people out there who do take it up a notch. They abuse their powers and their positions to either gain something that they want, or influence the minds and opinions of the masses. And there's a skill in that. There's definitely a skill in that. I mean, somebody once said, something to do with narcissists, that, narcissists are like that. They will have, a lot of conviction in what they say. They can never be wrong themselves. And I think a part of this conversation is some of the things that, from my experience or your experience, or even the experience of the people who are watching and listening right now, it would be interesting to get some feedback on this, and in terms of what you have observed, in terms of people who have had that influence over maybe you in the past, or your thoughts or your thinking. I want to know what what are the kinds of traits you've seen in people which should start to ring alarm bells. Because in my experience, alhamdulillah, I've traveled quite well. I've met different people from different demographics, worked in different environments, and I've seen a big variety of personalities. And partially coming from an NLP background, but also something that I've been quite observant of without the NLP. People who haven't done NLP will pick up on certain things from people where they think, hang on, you know what, this person did this or said this or did it in this way. It's not always about what they say, but how they say it. And then that influences you as well. So one of the first things, for example, in my mind, is that when somebody is always talking about other people to you, that's the first alarm bell.
Yeah.
Because no doubt they'll be talking about you to
other people. Yeah, of course.
I have, unless obviously you have a close circle of friends who you might share ideas and share opinions with about certain things, that's different. But generally speaking, if someone is comfortable with sharing their opinions with you about other people, there's a question.
Yeah.
Why are they sharing it with me?
Yeah. And then what are they sharing about me?
What they're sharing about
Especially me. if it's like a circle of friends. And then one friend will want to talk about another friend, but not in the circle, like on the sidelines.
You know what the funny thing is? They'll all say, listen, I'm going to tell you something, but only
don't tell anyone. Yeah.
Right? Only you know, and just keep it between us. And they'll tell about 10 or 15 other people saying exactly the same thing.
Same script, yeah.
Same script. And I think it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
I've come across situations, by the way, Shahanara says, narcissist, conviction or delusion. It's a good question. Is it conviction or delusion? I think they overlap sometimes. Their delusions, they have conviction in their own delusional thoughts.
I think the first person that they convince is themselves, isn't it?
Yeah, this is why they can't be wrong.
Yeah.
They can't be wrong. I mean, I'm not a specialist in narcissism, and I've come across the term, I've studied briefly, but I'm not a psychotherapist or anything like that.
A narcissist is very different to a liar. A liar is somebody who knows that they're either stretching the truth or misrepresenting the truth, or just downright fantasizing completely, but they know. I would say a narcissist has got something or the other up here which doesn't connect the wires that remind them that what they're saying or their account of something or version of something didn't actually happen, is not actually real or true.
Yeah, but they don't have any remorse either. No. Narcissists don't have any
sense of
remorse. They don't have any feelings.
If they've lost that sense of their sort of fantasy from reality, then why would they? If they've convinced themselves that they're truthful and they're right and their recollection of events is accurate and they have all the facts, why would they have remorse?
What's really worrying though? What's really worrying is how people in general, unless they've experienced something like this, can be very gullible and trusting of people. To some degree, it's excusable when you're inexperienced in life and you've not been through that before. So you're none the wiser about what people are capable of. But there are people out there, especially the vulnerable people who are maybe not so strong-minded or independent in their thinking, and they rely on certain individuals, and their thoughts are shaped by that individual's thought. But the danger isn't just about the individual being shaped in the way they think because of what they've been told. The danger is the evil in the people who influence them, knowing what they're telling them will be taken for gospel, as gospel. And they do that without responsibility. Everybody has a form of responsibility. And, we need to be responsible for our actions and our words. And sometimes we're responsible for the things we don't say. So it's not just about taking action or speaking up. We are also responsible for the things we don't say. And a lot of people forget the omissions part. Actions and omissions. People just blame and lay the finger and point the finger at people who say stuff or do stuff, but they don't often think about people who don't say anything when they should.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. That's a valid point, actually. How much freedom of thought do you think is really out there for the average person?
You know what? It's hard to say, isn't it? I think we all like the idea of freedoms and freedom of thought and all that kind of stuff. But when it really comes to the crux of the matter, all our thoughts are always going to be influenced by something we've read, we've seen, we've watched, we've heard. Through our senses, our mind's going to be conjuring up and weighing all the different opinions and ideas our life has thrown at us, things that we've looked at actively, things that we've absorbed subconsciously, unconsciously, and it's going to be a concoction of all those things. I think everybody has that freedom of thought to that level. The question isn't whether people have freedom of thought. The question is, how much of their thought do they really feel is exercised in their, with their own freedom and their free thought, their own assessment, an independent assessment. It's hard to be objective about certain things when you're being drilled with ideas or thoughts and opinions from somebody who's more, powerful than you, influential than you, stronger than you, and all those kinds of things. And it's and when your mind is still developing, it's much more difficult to make your own mind up about things because you're always looking for advice. You're always looking for somebody who's, not even consciously sometimes, unless you're a real rebel. If you're a real rebel, you'll just do whatever you want to do anyway. You're not going to give a crap about what other people think. But most of the times, if you're conscious of your actions and you want to do the right thing, then, you're going to be looking for advice. And the problem is you're not always going to be turning towards people who are knowledgeable, competent, qualified to give you that advice. They may seem like it.
Because they talk the talk.
Because they talk the talk.
Yeah, that's such a good point, actually. But by that time, you're going through whatever you're going through, that have you really stopped to analyze how qualified this person is? Whether they can give advice, whether I can take their advice. Because we spoke about this a few weeks ago. Do you remember the difference, our discussion on the difference between coaches and mentors? And that was the first time probably I've had it laid out for me like that a coach
is the one who asks the questions, the right questions.
Yes. Yeah. Whereas a mentor will say,
guides you and tells
a bit of accountability. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And I think when it comes to advice, etc., or counseling, or these kind of things, it's not for that person to be mentoring you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see the difference? If you've gone to somebody for advice or counseling, or just to kind of, maybe pour your heart out, it's really their job is to listen to you and to help you process what you're saying, and in turn will help you process what you're thinking and feeling.
Do you remember when I said that one of the conditions for coaching is that one of the prerequisites is that you have to be in a resourceful state of mind yourself.
Yeah.
If you're a coach and you're going to coach somebody. You can't coach somebody effectively unless you're in a resourceful state of mind yourself. And that applies to any kind of therapist, whether it's a counselor, somebody who you seek for counsel. If that counselor, that person is not in a resourceful state of mind themselves, they should know. They have that responsibility to understand, I'm not in the resourceful state of mind myself to be counseling somebody, so I should give them alternative advice or signpost them somewhere else. Because you're not going to be sincere or genuine if you're messed up in the head yourself and you're being asked to help somebody else who requires any kind of help. That applies to coaches, counselors, mentors, or whoever who is in a therapy-based type of a role. And so, yeah, of course. Now, the problem here is most people find it difficult to turn people away. For different reasons. Some have very good intentions. They'll say, well, I don't want to say no to this person. This person's gone through a lot, or this person's suffering, or this person's vulnerable, or whatever. But this is where emotional intelligence comes into play. You have to put your emotions to a side sometimes and think about this for them, not just yourself. Because when you're thinking of yourself doing everything for everybody, you're not going to be any good to any one body. Do you know what I mean? Sure. If you're spreading yourself that thinly and you're not, let's just say, well yourself, let's just say you've got, I don't know, you're going through anxiety or depression or, any mental health issues yourself, then you shouldn't be putting yourself or that person in that position where you're advising them to do anything. I mean,
it's negligence, isn't it?
It can backfire. It can make things worse. In the general sense, I would say, as a rule of thumb, anybody who is in a position where they're providing any kind of support, therapy of any kind, or guidance, they should not be guiding anybody unless they're in the right state of mind themselves. If they're not, then they're putting somebody's life at danger.
Literally, yeah.
Literally, that's how bad it can be.
Do you think as a basic sort of human emotion, we find it difficult to maybe turn somebody away or even redirect them or rechannel them towards maybe a better option or a better solution for them?
Yeah, there are different angles to this, aren't there? There can be some people who you would feel guilty for turning away because they have a certain relationship with you, and you don't want to seem like you're being insensitive by turning them away or directing them somewhere else. So if it's, for example, a family member or a close relative or a friend who's come to you for support and, emotional support or help or guidance, and you're telling them, look, I'm not in the right frame of mind to do anything, you need to go somewhere else, then they might take it like, this guy's fobbing me off or this girl's fobbing me off. So there's a risk there. But if it's even in that situation, if these people are close and you want to help them, then I would suggest being open about your own deficiencies in that moment in time to be able to help them. And that openness and transparency would be far more appreciated than, you trying to dive in and making a mess of something that's already, hanging on a thread.
And I think, how often do we see that, whether it's family, extended family, whether it's sort of friend circles or networks or whatever, is that one family member has gone to another family member in good faith, in trust, everything. But the family member that they've gone to or confided in isn't as biased as one may like to think. They've not seen the situation from a neutral perspective. Hence, everything that they say, all their advice, all their guidance, it's already biased. They've kind of picked a side in this, whether they premeditated it or...
Well, yeah, it's called conflicts of interest.
Conflict of interest.
So whenever you have a situation where somebody has asked for you, your advice or your opinion or, mediation, and this is how... I put a post up a few days ago. I had 3 situations prop up people asking me 3 different circumstances in the last couple of weeks where people have asked me to mediate between 2 parties. Okay. And none of them, in any of those situations, in all 3 of those situations, it didn't involve that person who's asking me. They were divulging information to me. They already had made their minds up about certain things about what people had said or done and who was in the wrong and who was in the right. And as a rule of thumb, as a mediator or as somebody who's going to be getting involved with dispute resolution or conflict, or what's that term again? Dispute resolution, right? You have to be as independent as possible. You can't already come to a conclusion, especially when you've only spoken to one side of the parties, of the 2 parties. And I've always said this: there are always three sides to an argument. 1, which one side will say; 2, which the other side will say; and the 3rd, which what actually happened. Because there's always going to be some discrepancy between the other 2 sides, like it or not. 9 out of 10 times, unless they're really mukhlis and
I mean, if you've got 2 people who are both telling 100% the truth and representing the situation 100% accurately, then do you even need a mediator?
Yeah, look, the thing is, in any situation, whenever you have that kind of, whenever you have a conflict, you can't mediate between parties who don't want to be mediated for. You have to have the consent of both parties, or however many parties there are, for them to explicitly say, yes, I trust this person to come in and be act independently and fairly. Fairness is going to be top of the agenda, because if there is no fairness and you're not going to be independent, where's the justice in that? You've got to have just people to do the right thing. So if you've not even spoken to one side and you've already made your mind up based on another side, I mean, who knows, that one side that you've spoken to might actually be right, might actually hold all the facts, and that's enough for them, to make their base their opinion on, as long as they've got the other side.
The point is, you're not to know, isn't it? You're not to know.
100%. Let me tell you something. This will be really interesting, because I've rarely shared this. I've been asked to mediate in marital problems since the age of 17. I was 17 years old, and I used to, when I was still just finishing A-levels. And I remember this because I was quite new in driving. I'd passed my test when I was 17 years old, and I'd got a car. And there was a couple in Birmingham, very close friends of the family, who had lots of tiffs and issues. And they actually called me. Both parties were okay to call me to come and help them out, to sort each other out, basically, right? Now, at the time, I didn't know what I was doing.
I was 17. I was 17. You just want to drive your car.
That's exactly why I went initially. But no, in seriousness, I was 17 years old. But I tell you what that experience did to me. That experience, because at the time, it was only for me a case of, come on, don't do that. Come on, you don't do that. Don't be silly. It was one of those kind of mediation. It wasn't mediation. It was like patch up, make up, and all that. These were a married couple with kids, yeah? For me, it was just a case of patch up, make up, right? And I was like trying to convince them both. As time went on, I was at university, and the same thing started happening again. And, there were, I suppose you could call, almost like an agony uncle type of a role. Amongst the circle of the people who I knew, they used to always go, yeah, go and get him. He'll sort it out. And I had that kind of a role within the communities or the friends that I knew. And as time's gone on, that's happened more and more over time. And it's happened more and more in terms of more complex situations, in which I've had to force myself into try to be objective in the way I look at things. And sometimes you've got to just ignore the emotional outburst and cries of the person who is claiming that the other person has wronged them, because you have to look at it's difficult to do that. It's not easy. Looking beyond the emotional outcries, and then acting fairly, justly, by listening to both sides without letting the emotions and the tears kind of influence your decision. It's easy to drop everything and say, yeah, look what you've done. You've made her cry.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, look what you've done. You know, she's thinking all sorts here now. Do you know what I mean? It's easy to do that. It's easy. I mean, some people have crocodile tears, and you don't know whether they're being genuine or not. It's so easy. So it's more difficult to be independent in your thinking, independent in your assessment, and any therapist will tell you that being independent in that kind of a situation, conflict. In this situation of conflict is of utmost importance, paramount importance. So yeah, I've been doing this since the age of 17. But one of the things that quickly I became aware of was, number one, independence. Number two, don't fall for the emotional outcries and the outbursts. And number three, listen to all sides objectively. Yeah. Number four, stick with the facts.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to be swayed by theories, opinions, misconceptions. I thought you did this. I thought you meant that. No. What did you say? What did he say? What did you do? What did he do? And what did he mean? What did you mean? Sometimes it's a case of just genuine miscommunication. Sometimes things are going to be misinterpreted, right? And this is where we think about a lot of the times when people have arguments and, you know, they get at each other's throats for what may be presumed as, you know, menial things. NLP, we refer to big chunk thinkers and small chunk thinkers, like people who have just different way of thinking and how to process stuff. It's easy to do that. It's easy to just kind of fall apart from somebody just because they think or process things differently. Some people are more focused on the minute details of arrangements, and some people aren't. Some people are focused. They're not focused on minute detail. They just look at the bigger picture. Neither are wrong. They're just different.
Different, yeah.
And people don't get that. People get frustrated with each other, and this is why even when you have relationships, people are frustrated with each other just because somebody's not. You know, one person might be a big chunk thinker, you know, and the other person might like the details, the finer details, and they just can't see each other's way of doing things. And that unfortunately results in arguments, fights, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, see, there's so much to unpack there that, look, first of all, there's the naivety. Let's say me and you don't get on for whatever reason, or we're not, you know, some kind of fallout, call it lover's tiff, call it whatever, yeah? I would be naive to go to somebody, to go to maybe one of your friends, whether I go to one of your friends or whether I go to somebody who doesn't like you. Either way, it's naive on my part, because I know that person is from your circle, whether it's your circle of lovers or haters or whatever. It doesn't make sense. It's an ill thought out move from my part. But then secondly,
unless that person has a reputation for being just.
This is the thing. That was my second point, is that's where experience and professionalism would really come into question of the person that's been asked to, you know, intervene or mediate or resolve. Because whoever I go to, if they're not professional and they're not experienced and they're not of that level of integrity.
What's professional and experience? This is a matter of perception.
Yeah. So
yeah,
if I go to somebody, me and you've had a fight, forget who's right, forget who's wrong, yeah? If I've got to approach somebody and that person doesn't have those qualities or, you know, character traits, they're going to they might find themselves somewhat biased towards me because I've given them the respect or that authority or that kind of stature. I've gone to them. So they're naturally, you know, without justice, they're going to lean towards me. That's a problem straight away. But I'm so wound up in my own thoughts, I'm not to see that. The person who's perhaps less than professional or perhaps less than, you know, any of these things is also boosted because, oh, he's come to me, so, you know, I've got to kind of look out for him. And do you see what I mean? There's so many issues in all of this, and I think we see this quite often in family, in friends, in social circles. And I think one thing that we've lost in communities now is people of that standing. Like for example, we're in, Burton or a part of Burton or whatever. I mean, I've lived here a long time. I don't particularly know of any clear-cut names of people. Oh yeah, any issues or any resolutions, the people of Burton go to this person. And I'm sure it wasn't always like that as societies or communities or tribes or villages. I'm sure there was a time where we had that under wraps.
There's two things with that. Number one, back in them days, when there were people of that standing, number one, they were people of ethics and morals, and they didn't take shit from anybody. They said it how it is, how they saw it to be true. That's their truth. Whether you liked it, whether it's right or wrong, they had conviction and that they had those ethics and morals. Number two, they were given respect by respectable members of the community.
That's the difference, isn't it?
That's the difference. And they were given that respect by people who didn't have shots to fire against anybody who they might see as competitors. Nowadays, everybody wants to be that community leader. Everybody wants to have that status in communities, societies, and the titles and the names plastered over. Somebody asked me just the other day, why don't you take on this, role and stuff? It's for something I was volunteering for. I said, no, this titles don't do it for me. I like the work that I'm doing. If there was a need for something more or beyond what I'm doing, I'll do it. But I don't want the title. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want I don't want those spotlights on me just for the sake of having a title, right? I've had titles before. They don't mean anything. If you're sincere, you'll do what you have to do without seeking recognition and rewards and awards and stuff for it. Do you know what I mean? There are lots of unsung heroes out there who do work. I mean, people like in Our Humanity Unites Our Soup Kitchen. There are lots of people who do have a lot of, they spend a lot of time with us. They spend, Sahil and Sharon, these are two people who I have a lot of respect for. They go out of their way every single Sunday. They'll go out and, they'll organize everything. Yeah, we all set it up as friends. We're all supporting in different ways. But the Sahil in particular, who I've seen, and Sharon, they, no matter what happens, unless there's something that they've organized with the family and they have to be somewhere else, they will always go out of their way to make sure that the events are running properly, even on the days that they're not running events. I mean, I've covered Sahil so many times, and he's saying, Maj, do you need anything else for this Sunday? Everything in order? Is there anything that I need to pick up from anywhere?
Yeah.
That kind of guy. He's never put himself forward for any award. I mean, I'm always bigging him up because he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's those types of people. And there are those types of people, there's a saying in Punjabi, Khodiya part and nikliya chua, right? Basically, in English, for those of you who don't know, it means that you dig out the whole mountain, and underneath it you only find a little mouse.
Yeah.
It's a comparative thing, isn't it? There's another saying, "Piddi nikki pataka vadda." So,
okay,
I think for the Punjabis, they'll understand what I'm referring to. There are people who make a lot of noise, but they're full of hot air. Somebody once said to me, empty barrels make louder noise. They would do little to nothing, but they'll make such a big deal out of it. They just want the awards. They want emblems.
As long as their name is on it, their tag is on it, their kind of recognition.
Otherwise, they won't even do it. Shanar says, from my experience in working as a mediator many moons ago, it's so important that people seek someone who is neutral to both parties. One of the points I'll add to what you've both already mentioned is that boundaries may be blurred by the parties or the mediator themselves. Conflict resolution training helps you to work on techniques to help both parties and common ground, as well as on your own emotions. So mediators remain professional, however, emotional the clients become 100%. 100%. And that's exactly, what I was referring to. But obviously Shahnara has articulated that much better than I did. And that independence is what's going to give you the objective route to follow. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, either way, you're going to be siding one person or the other, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that does more harm than it does good.
Of course, without a doubt. Look, you can't have somebody mediating who's not going to be just. Mediation is the whole point of mediating is so that you arrive to a conclusion which is fair and just. Yeah. If you're going to be one-sided, where's the justice in that? Where's the fairness in that? And what's worse? There are people out there who will justify their conclusions to everybody except for the people who are involved in the situation and add masala onto it by making up stories. They're not the right people to ask to mediate in stuff. The problem you have is some people have nothing else going on in their lives, so they need that validation by making loud noises and throwing, pointing fingers at people. And
I did this, I did that.
I did this and I did that to pick themselves up.
It's almost as if they're building some kind of CV or portfolio for themselves, isn't it? But you know what? Somebody with that warranted standing in any community or society will know. A fourth person will never know. If I've gone to the right person to resolve mine and your issue, nobody else will ever come to know about it.
100%.
Particularly not from the person that I've gone to.
Yeah. And this is why I put that post up a few days ago about people who go around telling other people stuff, backbiting and slandering and stuff. And I based that on all three of the situations that I came across in the last 2 weeks. In any of those three situations, none of them required me to know the names of people. Because none of those people, aggrieved parties, had been consulted. I shouldn't know. Do you know what I mean? And then if I'm going to go around... Oh yeah, leave it. I was going to get heated up about that one because it reminded me of so many conversations I've had in the last week or so, and messages that have been sent to me about, if that's about me, then you yourself are in the wrong because you didn't get the facts. It's like, you know what, you point a finger at someone and three are pointing back at you. You know what I mean? Is that kind of a scenario? And I didn't even respond to some of these comments or messages because I thought, you know what, there's no point because you're not going to change people's minds. Some people can never be wrong. And this is one of,
If there was that sincerity, then you could change people's minds. Somebody who's sincere and truthful and honest and wanting to do the best thing. There's a difference between having a clear conscience and just convincing yourself otherwise. If you've got a clear conscience, you never shy away from the fact that you may have been mistaken, misguided, miscalculated, misinformed, anything.
Your conclusions could actually be bang on.
Yeah.
But if your approach is wrong, you've done more harm than good.
Yes.
Your conclusions about these things can be bang on. And coming back to the actual, the overall discussion that we're having here about thinking for yourself, this applies in both camps. On the side on which people are seeking remedial, whatever it might be, remedies of some kind or, counseling, and the side of the people who are providing the counseling. In both camps, people need to be independent in their thinking. And you know what? Have you seen that analogy of somebody writing a 6 on the floor? If you're standing opposite, saying
the 6 and the 9, yeah.
The 6, from your side it looks like a 9, from my side it looks like a 6. We're both right, but we're seeing it from different angles.
Yeah.
Only yesterday and the day before, in fact today as well, somebody has been in contact with me, asking me, because you hear about a lot of these women's movements, women empowerment, protecting women's rights, making sure women aren't hard done by, as they should. I'm all up for that.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, this particular woman who came in contact with me, she said there's an imbalance, particularly when it comes to fathers not winning the rights of seeing their children in a dispute when there's a marital dispute. So if there's a separation between a husband and wife, or father and mother, if they're not married, there happens to be a big disparity, an imbalance in how the court, or I don't even know if it is the law, but possibly the law favors the mother over the father, and it's drawn men towards taking their own lives and depression.
Yeah.
And there's a big imbalance.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
So it's like anything. When you are fighting for the rights of people, you can't have it one way. You can't just fight for the right of one person or one kind of people and ignore the others and leave them be or let them rot. You have to fight the rights of both.
If you want justice, or it's often referred to as equality, and you want to fight to get up to 50% of a certain right in a certain criteria, or but then there's another area where you've got 70-80% of the right or the standing or the power, and you're not willing to reduce on that side, then your equality argument is out the window, isn't it?
It's out of the window. The equality argument is out of the window, but as a person who feels, or they feel that they are of good character and good standing, they need to be showing that they are fighting for both rights. Yeah. You can't fight for the rights of people and just fight for the one side. Where there's an injustice taking place for the other side, you've got to be fair and just and say, actually, no, that's wrong as well.
Yeah. And you don't really see that, I'll be honest. And it's funny you mentioned that, because we're all adults, we're all on social media, right? We all see one particular gender rant a little bit more than the other about
rant. Okay.
Yeah. About absent.
That's controversial for you.
Baby daddies or whatever, yeah.
Oh.
Okay. All right. You know what? Women are worse for it. Okay, I said it. There you go. But I read some of these posts, and they'll be on a rant. You know what? Bent rib, all that. I get it. But some of the things that they say, he wants to turn up after a week, and he wants to see the child, and he wants to take him out. No. Where's he been? Where was he on this day? Where was he on that day? And just, I'm not going to let him. I'm not going to do this. If he thinks he can just walk in and out. And I think, and you read between the lines and you think basically she's denying the father the right to see his child.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, he was unable to make a different day, or he was unable to, I don't know, financially support as much as maybe she would have liked, whatever the reasons. I now have this subconscious thing where I flip it. And I imagine that was a man putting a mother through that, keeping a mother away from her child. And honestly, ever since I've started flipping it, it breaks my heart.
And this is what this particular sister was referring to. She's saying that there's not enough emphasis on that in terms of the other side. Like apparently in these court cases and the fighting for the rights of these parents, it just so happens that the fathers are worse off. They're left worse off. Zahur just mentioned a really important point, actually, about being just. He says, probably not the right time to mention this. Actually, Zahur, this is the right time to mention this. Probably not the right time to mention this, but this is like sticking up for Ukraine and not speaking up for the Palestinian people.
My brother, absolutely.
Bang on.
Absolutely.
Bang on. It's double standards, isn't it? That's what it comes down to. It comes down to double standards. And if you're just, you will fight for justice no matter what. You're not going to be biased. Justice does not allow any kinds of biases or prejudices to come in play. You're just.
Just. I don't know if you could quote that. Like, will it catch on?
I don't know. You'll have to put some context around it.
Yeah, you can have a T-shirt that just said just.
Yeah, not just with a Nike tick on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but no, true. I think Baizul makes actually a really good point. There is a lot of double standards, and it makes me think, not even think, realize how much of a lack of justice there is in the world. It's just, you know what? It is a lack of justice. It's not fair. There's, talk about equality this and fairness that and humanity this. If justice is lacking, what do you really have?
Yeah, and you know what? This is why a lot of people get, even from amongst the Muslim community, they misinterpret things. They say Islam means there is equality. Islam is equality. No, Islam is not based on equality. It's based on justice.
Yeah.
What's just? It's not equality, because you can't have complete equality in everything. In Islam we don't. We're just.
And it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work.
Imagine, and I think, you know what?
Let me guess. Are you gonna mention the boxing analogy? Put a man and a woman in a boxing ring together.
I wasn't, but I would. Would I love to see that? No, that would be a bit barbaric. Let's not do that. But I was actually going to bring up a podcast that we've done in a previous season about femininity. Is femininity a word?
Yeah.
Femininity and masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
And how you can be 50-50. You can be men can be feminine and women can be masculine. And, there's just no... It's equal opportunity. You can be whatever you want to be.
Anything goes.
Anything. Well, that's, we could give so many examples on this whole LGBT. And I don't know what letters have been added this week, but I'm sure there is one. You're right. Islam is about justice. It's not about equality. I've not heard anywhere. I'm not familiar with men and women being the same, or being equal, or being,
but that's because you may have learned a little bit about that. You know what's ironic though? A lot of the times when people are in that position where they've been approached to help somebody out or provide counseling or guidance or whatever, they may have a Muslim identity. And they may claim that they're doing, because it's Islamically, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, and we need to fight against this, and all that kind of stuff. Sadly, a lot of those people are the ones who I've noticed, they're not very learned in Islam themselves. They want to be the leaders within the community, but they don't possess the attributes of Muslim leaders.
They're probably more familiar with Tupac lyrics, and they'll quote it as some kind of gospel or
Bollywood.
Yeah. If it's only God can judge me brigade.
They will know more about Bollywood, Lollywood, Hollywood celebrities and the lifestyles and their cats, dogs, names and who they had an affair with and all that kind of stuff than the names of prophets and the Sahabas. And then they say that, Islamically this is wrong. Like they're the Qadis and then the Mujahideen of Islam of this time. And they're making the rules of what Islam. They've misinterpreted the Islamic notions of justice and what it means. I posted that hadith regarding what backbiting and slander means. Like there's a hadith where the Prophet was asked, about backbiting and not to entertain. And I'm paraphrasing here, obviously. And one of the companions asked, "What about if it's true?" And they said, well, if it's true, it's backbiting. It's still backbiting. If it's not true, it's slander. So in either case, it's not permissible. So Kamran, sorry, gents just tuned in, so trying to pick up the conversation. Not many people can execute justice based on truth. Truth nowadays is standing up for your own benefit and agenda. Very true. He continues to say, leaders nowadays want to stand on both sides of the fence because they look for a future opportunity not wasted. A lot of people won't stand on haqq. 100%.
True.
Yaar, Kamran Khan Saab, काफी देर बाद अकल निकाल के
No, जी, Khan Saab रोज अकल निकालने.
He does actually. I'm just pulling his leg. He's a good friend, and we always have a bit of banter. But that is bang on. Bang on. Can't argue with that. And it's something we observe on a regular basis, isn't it? So God help us from these community leaders and their ways of doing things. The only advice that I would give to anybody is there's no shame. First of all, there is no shame. You are the bigger person if you seek help and advice. Number one. Number two, get your advice and seek counseling or whatever it is, mentoring or coaching or guidance from competent people who are, and I'll use this word loosely, qualified to guide you, and people who will give you independent advice. Now, how do you find them? Ask around, but don't just start confiding with your deepest, darkest secrets with anyone and everybody. The recipients of the recipients of information, I think it's equally important. If you're getting information and you're being influenced by people of a certain standing within the community or the business world or your workplace, critique things, learn to question stuff. And just as there's no shame in reaching out for help, there's no shame in asking questions if you're looking to do the right thing. And asking the right questions, is of utmost importance whenever you're in any environment, to find out whether this person actually has the credentials to help me. Now, if that person starts on a rant because you asked them for their credentials, then you've got your answer.
Yeah.
Right?
Wrong number, yeah.
You're wrong number. What's that movie called again? It's an Amar Khan movie where they go around talking about these beards and saints and who charge money.
PK.
PK, that's
PK.
it. If anybody hasn't watched the movie, worth watching that movie. Ask the right questions and ask the questions confidently. And you know what? If a person can't give you, don't go by I help this person and I help that person. I know this person. That doesn't mean anything. In the grand scheme of things, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Knowing people doesn't mean anything. Saying you've helped somebody doesn't mean anything. Only the results speak whether you actually help them.
To be fair, in reality, if you're genuine enough, you would never reel off a list of people that you've helped.
Yeah, exactly. That should actually start ringing alarm bells. Stop mentioning names.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I did this. I did that. I'm involved in this. I resolved this. No. Because what's going to happen is your situation, one way or another, whether they resolve it or not, it's going to pass. It's going to come to pass. But you're just going to be another notch on their belt. You're forever going to be spoken about.
Yeah.
All in all, you're making this person more notorious or more well known, whatever. When really, it's the opposite.
Wow. Zaf, Assalamu alaikum, brother Zaf, hope you're well. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, he who is two-faced in this world will have two tongues of fire on the day of resurrection.
Oof.
Yeah. It's, there are a lot of warning signs for us, especially people of faith, whether you're Christian, you follow Judaism, Islam, whatever it is. And I'm not talking about people who just follow it by namesake. We can only judge by the apparent. And the thing is, when you, it's sad, isn't it? It's sad when people want to force themselves on a community to hold leadership positions when they don't even follow basic. They don't even read namaz. They don't even read salah. They don't pray. They don't do the basics, the absolute basics. And then they throw a wobbly if you question them on anything.
My heart is pure. I know my intentions.
Only God can judge me.
Yeah.
Tupac.
This
again. Yeah.
Very familiar, isn't it? Very familiar.
Yeah.
Justice. It just keeps coming back to this word in my head is justice. If I do have a grievance with you, I don't expect, or I shouldn't at least expect, people to condemn you for life. Even if you're wrong, even if you're right, I don't expect somebody to come in and just condemn you forever. Oh, this person is this, and Majid is this, and Majid, I'm never going to give him another chance. Nobody talk to him. Everybody be wary of him. The guy made one mistake. He was on the wrong side of one argument or one situation or one issue. To be fair, before you've even mediated, he might have repented.
Yeah, true. And who knows? I mean, people hold grudges about people, on people. Let's say, oh, I've got dirt on this person, I've got dirt on that person. Who knows, whether they really have or not? First of all, is it based on facts, or is it based on hearsay? Is it based on opinion? Is it just something that you've concocted in your mind and believed it? Did somebody just tell you and now you believe it? First of all, if these are dangerous things to be doing. And secondly, and if somebody has made a mistake, let's just say they made a mistake 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, are they even the same person anymore?
There's a hadith in there that if you see somebody stealing in the night, in the morning, don't call them a thief. The next day, then don't call them a thief, because you don't know. You don't know what he went home and what he did, and if he repented and how he resolved it, and whether he spent the night in in repentance and crying for forgiveness and everything. Hold them accountable for that action.
Yeah,
but don't condemn the person.
Don't tarnish their reputation or relation.
This is the thing.
Don't label them for the rest of their lives.
Intentions, we don't question intentions.
Yeah, Ali. The thing is, if you look around you, and I don't know how many people or counselors or coaches or mentors I mean, I know quite a lot in loads of different disciplines, right? Not one of them have a clean past as far as the public is concerned.
Yeah.
So they should know that people can change. A good mentor will teach you that there are ways out of your previous life and moving towards positive, more productive future in the right way. They get people out of crap.
Yeah.
Bad mentors, counselors or whatever, self-proclaimed ones, they will punch you down to the ground. And if you try and get up, they'll stick their heels on you.
Yeah. And then they'll get other people to gang up on you.
Keep you down. Well, they've forgotten their own journeys. They've forgotten the mistakes they made in their previous years, in their lives, in their youth.
Yeah.
They've forgotten that they've done things just as bad or if not worse. And people may know about them, but they don't say anything. They've forgiven that because they've overlooked things, because they perceive that you may be wanting to make a change in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when a man is down, you don't trample on them. You look for positive ways of helping them and correct them.
That's when intentions can really be questioned.
Yeah.
You're not out to help that person.
Of course.
You're out to annihilate that person and make sure they don't get back up, and make sure everybody knows about it. And that's the end of that person. That person, in your eyes, is done.
Yeah.
And then is it from the Bible that let he who is without sin cast the first stone?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we forget all of this.
Yeah.
Bring it back to intention. If you mean well, then you mean well for everybody.
Yeah.
The right, the wronged, the wronger, the wrong-un, the googly, whatever you want to call it, for everyone. And this is so important. And I think we so easily forget this, because something that we want to believe, we're convinced like this.
We're getting so many beautiful reminders from people and learned people on today's podcast. We don't have that. We've had a constant good number of viewers today, but the comments have been trickling in. Brother Abid Muhammad, I think that's the name, isn't it? It's Brother Abid Muhammad. He said, Hamdan Kathir, Hamdun al-Qassar, one of the great early Muslims, said, if a friend among your friends errs, make 70 excuses for them. If your hearts are unable to do this, then know that the shortcoming is in your own selves. 100%. What a beautiful saying. You know what? And this what does this teach us?
it's timeless advice, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
You can't even say it was a different era, it was a different time, it was a different situation, but that doesn't apply here. It applies everywhere, in every which context. Beautiful, beautiful. You know what? I've never met Brother Abid.
Yeah, we were just saying this, weren't we?
I don't know if I have or not.
I don't know. But
I would love to.
He is. He's a beautiful person. By the sound of it.
I've
His
really
comments,
fond of him,
same here. I liked his comments in our normal posts, and they're always very useful and very inspiring at times and educational. Very good. Jazakallah khair, Brother Abid. Thank you very much. Shahana says it's crucial to check the credentials of mental health professionals, especially as those seeking counselling therapy are likely to be in a vulnerable place. Supervision is a requirement for counsellors, psychotherapists, so that there is another professional overseeing how the therapist. Sorry, the comments are actually flying through now. They're coming in thick and fast. So as clients may be suicidal, self-harming, and so on. Sorry for too many comments. You know what? 100%. As something again which is overlooked, isn't it? Yeah. Something again which is overlooked. Which when people seek counsel from somebody, they think just because somebody has popularity of some kind, or they make a lot of noise, they're going to know everything. And it's a very naive way of looking at things. Daf says intentions are the roots of every action. If it reflects the underlying motives of why we plan something or do what we do. Narrated in a hadith, Prophet ﷺ said, actions are judged by intentions, niyyah, so each man will receive what he has intended for. This underlines that intention is the ultimate foundation of our actions, 100%. And that's particularly relating to, from my experience and research, when it comes to the acts of ibadah. In social contexts, we judge by the apparent. We can only judge by the apparent. So, again, making the excuses, again, ties in with that. Cameron says, the bitter truth is we look for net worth in a leader regardless of them being educated or knowing the basics of Islam. Shots fired.
I have a feeling
the person may have a dirty background, but he knows everyone on the street, so he's the leader who we place our trust in. It's true. Jiski lati uski bais,
100%.
as they say, isn't it?
Speaking of bands, me and Cameron were actually discussing.
Are you bands?
No.
It's Cameron.
We were discussing cows. Different kind of bands.
Different kind of bands. Right. So we've actually slightly run over time, but we were just getting warmed up. I get the feeling we were just getting warmed up in today's podcast. We've had a consistent number of viewers who have shared some very valuable and important messages. Thank you very much to each and every one of you. We do genuinely appreciate your comments, and we like to, we don't know everything as much as you might think we do, or how much we might think we do. But we always learn from these different comments, and who knows who's watching and who's reading these comments, who gets inspired by what you say. And it's not just our mugs and our voices on here, but your comments on here are also the things which inspire people, and people take things away from that, and you just don't know who you might have helped in what way. So all in all, I think we can conclude this particular topic here. Thank you so much for your contributions, and inshallah we'll any final words, Ali, from you?
I think we've summed it up pretty nicely. Look, intention is maybe 90%, and then justice. Intention and justice. Once you have these two things in your heart, you should be able to maneuver around most situations. And the same thing, don't write anybody off. If someone is down, if my brother is down, I'm down. If my neighbor is down, I'm down. If my friend is down, I'm down. We need to.
Yeah, but when your brother has done something wrong, then we need to get to the bottom of that as well. But there are ways of doing it.
There are, absolutely.
There are ways of doing it. You don't leave them hanging dry in public and give them a public flogging virtually or on social or whatever it is, or between your inner circles, because this is how rumors start. And you will not get that opportunity to apologize to that person and retract your statements in front of the same people. You might die tomorrow. What are you taking with you? So the important thing is, I think there are etiquettes when it comes to all of this. On the one side, you've got to be careful with who you're seeking advice from, whether your thoughts are manipulated, shaped, or influenced by somebody else. Be conscious of that. Whether, and that's both sides of the camp, those who are seeking counsel, those who are counseling. And at the same time, when somebody has maybe done wrong, be just in your dealings with how to.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's that middle ground. It is that middle ground. Look, the point you made about your brother doing wrong, don't overlook it. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't cover for him completely, and let him continue to do so.
Pull him up on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Directly.
Face to face.
Has to be done.
If you care about somebody, then
you'll speak to them.
You'll speak to them, not about them.
No, this is the difference. Is that don't let it go unchallenged, but also don't be guilty of just slandering or backbiting or malice. The middle ground in this particular scenario, the middle ground is the straight path.
Yeah.
Pull them up, resolve it, guide them, educate them, and maybe learn something yourself along the way. You can then only then say that you've been just to everybody concerned. Your intentions were right. You wanted the best thing for everybody. And then you, being the sort of senior or whatever, have said, look, let's put this matter to bed now. This is it. It's done. It's resolved. We don't need to speak any more of this.
And on that note, let's put this episode to bed. This was episode 5 of season 4, titled The Things I Do For You. Have a good evening. Have a good night. Inshallah. Until next time.